Welcome to the Skip Bayless Show. Unless you're an NFL kicker, I don't hate you guys. I just hate what you do. I hate it that what you do ruins the greatest games in the world, NFL games, especially NFL playoff games. I mean, somebody out there, help me out on this. Tell me I'm wrong about this. Why do we allow little nut job, non-football players, basically little soccer players, to trot off the sideline and onto NFL football fields, not to mention college football fields, and decide games with a swing of the leg by kicking a ball between two poles, the silliest, most gimmicky way to decide football games after these mighty warriors, these rare athletes, these Caleb Williams and these Josh Allens and these Pro Bowl members of the Texans defense and the Broncos defense and the Patriots defense, they fight their guts out for almost 60 minutes. And then we let little guys who have no business on a football field, who don't play football, who could not obviously make a football team at any position, at any place on the depth chart, we let them decide game after game after game with one swing of their legs and hope that their fragile little psyches aren't infected by demons that rip their confidence apart, and suddenly they go farther south than Tijuana and start missing kicks completely unpredictably and unsolvably. It happens again and again. The whole AFC North was decided by one swing of the leg by a rookie kicker named Tyler Loop, who threw us all for a loop from 44 yards out by missing the kick that got John Harbaugh fired and somehow lifted Mike Tomlin before he stepped down into the playoffs. It was all about Tyler Loop. And then last Saturday night, I had to sit and watch Brandon McManus, who once upon a time helped drive the Denver Broncos, featuring my man Aqib Talib on Arena Gridiron. Check it out. You can see it on the Arena YouTube channel. But Aqib Talib was a great player. And he's, to this day, raves about what a great guy Brandon McManus was during their 2015 season run to the Super Bowl. Brandon McManus made all 10 of his playoff kicks. He made all 3 of his Super Bowl kicks against Cam Newton and the Panthers. And it lifted those Denver Broncos featuring Aqib Talib, obviously Peyton Manning, to a Super Bowl championship. That same Brandon McManus on Saturday night at Soldier Field missed 2 field goals and an extra point kick, 7 points worth, that cost the Green Bay Packers the game. The Packers are better than the Bears. Football team to football team, the Packers are better and played better. Packers won the turnover battle 0-2. I mean, I watched Jordan Love throw 4 touchdown passes to no interceptions, lost no fumbles, and it came down to a missed field goal at the end of the half which Brandon McManus made from 55 yards out, made it with room to spare, except that Ben Johnson had called timeout just before the ball was snapped, so he had to kick it again. He got a practice kick. He got to rehearse. And the one that counted, he duck hooked to the left. Then in the fourth quarter, Jordan Love went on one great touchdown drive. I know they'd gone punt, 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 punt in the second half. But one great touchdown drive, threw it to Matthew Golden. He slips away, scores. And it looked like the Packers had re-seized control of the football game, and Brandon McManus missed the extra point. It's just a kick in the balls. It just doubles a team over as if they had been kicked in the midsection, in the man region, in the testicles. Just doubles a team over. It kicks them right in the psyche. It's like, oh my God. Now the math favors them. And then Brandon McManus had a 44-yard field goal, which he pushed to the right. Could have won the game. Could have been such a psychological advantage for the visiting team, and he missed it. And he owned it after the game because he's got a Super Bowl ring. But he owned it, and he said, embarrassing performance, biggest disappointment of my career. I left 7 points on the board. Did he ever? Why do we do this? Why do we allow this? Whose bright idea was this to adopt goalposts from rugby when we don't need goalposts? 1974, they finally decided to move them back. They used to have them on the goal line, and they moved them. The receivers used to run into them. They used to have the double pole, and then they went to the single, made it look like a slingshot goalpost. And they moved it to the back line to get it out of the way and force longer kicks so that kicks would have less impact on the scoreboard. But the way it is today, as kickers get better and better because of the soccer-style motion, kicks decide everything all year long. That's why I'll tell you how to change the rules, but they're never going to change. And you know why? Because it got grandfathered in, and now the NFL knows that we're all just sort of indoctrinated. We're blinded. We're just numb to the fact that field goals and place kicking are exciting for all the wrong reasons because it's a roller coaster ride every year. But it's why I said from the start, if I owned a team, because I can't change the rules, I'd go out and find the greatest kicker in the history of kickers. And I thought my Dallas Cowboys had done that with Brandon Aubrey. Best leg I've ever seen. Maybe Cam Little would argue that. I'm about to get to Cam Little and the shot that he took at me. Just hang on for that. Hang on for dear life like you have to with every kicker. And at the end of this year, Brandon Aubrey missed a couple. The demons started to just gnaw away at his psyche, and now he's a little off balance. Now he's not sure. It happens to all of them. It happens to the best of them. They're all little nut jobs, little psychos, and they decide football. They eat us alive. So just quickly, just let me explain how this happened. So early on back in the 1800s, football, as it starts to grow, said, well, we should do what rugby does. They kick the extra ball. Let's try that, except football is so much more complex. I don't know rugby, but just I've watched some of it and some Australian rules football on ESPN Ocho or whatever I watched it on. But I don't pretend to know it. I just know that football is way more complex, more brainiac than rugby. It's a great game. It's this 11 on 11, and you need 10 yards for a first down. So what I proposed from the start was just forget, just eliminate, abolish place kicking. Take the freaking silly goalposts, take them out. We don't need them. These offenses are so skilled. The receivers, the running backs, and especially the quarterback are so elite that just let them try to keep getting the necessary yards for a first down or a touchdown. Let them drive. Would it cut down the scoring? It would some, but you might be surprised. Maybe there'd be more scoring because there'd be more 7s than 3s. Eliminate the 3. And then when a team does go down, if it's, again, not punt, don't eliminate punting. Punting is strategic. Punting requires a semblance of athletic ability among the punters. They're always better athletes. They're bigger, stronger, faster, because they have to actually be able to catch long passes. They're obviously snapped between the legs, but they're the equivalent of long passes that you have to be able to catch and then do your footwork, maybe avoid the onrush, and you have to coffin corner kick it. You have to strategically aim it to the left corner, the right corner, away from the lethal returner. It takes brain power and athletic ability to punt, and it's an essential strategic part of the mind game of football, because let's say it gets to 4th and 3 at the 27 as you're driving for a touchdown, and you say, in today's game, you say, let's just take the 3 here. We need the 3. But no, under the rules, I propose you have to keep going. You have to go for it on 4th and 3 because there's no more field goal. And then maybe you move it and you move it and maybe you score. And when you do score, every time you get to go for 2 more points. I love 2-point conversions. They're hard and they're extremely edge of seat exciting because you have the defense packed into this little box and you have to figure a way to outmaneuver, outwit, outguess the defense with the right play call, the Andy Reid special, the trick play, the quick pass right to the edge of the goal line, the fade route to the 6'5" receiver. It's beautiful to watch 2-point conversions, and I would love to watch it every single time somebody scores a touchdown. That's how to fix football and take these little nut jobs out of the equation. They don't belong. Okay, so what happened? Back in the good old days of the early NFL, I can live with this because they just said, okay, we do have field goals and we do have extra points, but they have to be kicked by football players. So every team had to find somebody who could play a position in football and also figure out as kind of a side gig, as almost a hobby, how to kick straight on field goals and extra points. And they did it with the toe. It was a toe kick, a straightforward toe kick. And I go back to my early childhood days. I've been around a while. Lou the Toe Groza. He was a really good player. He was a perennial Pro Bowl player in the offensive line, also played some defensive line, but he could really kick. They called him Lou the Toe Groza. Lou the Toe because he kicked, led the league in points several times. He was really good. George Blanda was a really good quarterback who hung on until he was 48 years of age because he could place kick as well as back up at quarterback. And with Al Davis, Al loved him and kept him around for a long time because he could place kick. He could straight on toe kick. I lost my first Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl to the Baltimore Colts in the Orange Bowl in Miami, Super Bowl V. And it came down with 9 seconds left to a kick by Jim O'Brien, who was a pretty good wide receiver in college, went to the University of Cincinnati, where he started out on basketball scholarship. So he was athletic. And as, sort of a little side hustle, he started learning how to straight on kick with his toe first. And Jim O'Brien became the place kicker and kind of a backup receiver for the Baltimore Colts. And with 9 seconds left, he trotted out and he nailed a 32-yard field goal that beat my Dallas Cowboys in their first Super Bowl try under Coach Landry, 16-13. Okay, at least he was on the football team. And then there was the great Tom Dempsey, who was born with no toes on his right foot. So he had to have specially made a different kicking shoe that had a big flat face because there's no toe box at all. And so with that, it was very controversial because some people thought he gained advantage. A lot of people argued, no, he gained no advantage. But with his sort of club foot, if you will, he clubbed one field goal 63 yards, and that stood as the record for 43 years. And they did make a rule in 1977, the Tom Dempsey rule, that said, hey, if you do have an artificial leg or foot or whatever, that you still have to wear a kicking shoe that conforms to everybody else's kicking shoe. Okay. But the point was, in those days, most of those guys played football. I don't think Tom did. Maybe he did play offensive tackle. I can't remember. But the point was that these guys were football players. Can you imagine today if there were a rule that said that every team's place kicker in every game that he entered and kicked in, that he had to play 50% of the snaps in that game, or he would, they would somehow, you would have to penalize them or disqualify them? Can you imagine what would happen? I'll never forget, I've battled with kickers my whole career. Top of the list, Jay Feely. You remember Jay kicked for Atlanta and New York Giants, and back in my cold pizza days, Jay and I sparred back and forth about kicking. And I tried to tell him, I don't hate you, I just hate what you do. And he tried to defend what he did. One thing led to another. We were down at ESPN The Weekend in Orlando at Disney World. We're arguing back and forth, and we decided, I think I proposed it, to race, because he was saying, I'm an athlete. I'm good enough to be a pro football player. So we raced one day. He snookered me because he said he was going to run barefoot. We were out on a soccer field, and we measured off 40 yards. His brother was there, and he stood at the far line at 40 and took off. And Jay beat me pretty badly. I hung in there. I did the best I could. I'm reasonably fast and in really good shape. I'm pretty sure I was in better shape then and am now than Jay. But Jay can fly. Jay was a high school star soccer player in the state of Florida, like an all-star. Kicked at Michigan there with Tom Brady. But Jay told me after he beat me by about 5 yards that he had just timed in the 40 at one of their mini camps with the Giants, and he ran 4.6. Well, Jerry Rice ran 4.6. Puka Nacua ran 4.6. Emmitt Smith ran 4.6. I can't run 4.6. I don't know what I would run if I timed it. Could I beat 5 flat? I don't know, maybe. But I'm not 4.6. And Jay told me that Tom Coughlin had him listed, or maybe it's unofficial. Maybe he told me it's unofficial, but that Tom promised him that he was a backup safety, that he was like the third, maybe he didn't appear on the depth chart, but that he would be, in the emergency, a backup safety. And Jay was always known as, I think, the greatest kicker tackler in the history of the NFL, because on kickoffs, Jay loved to kick it and then just haul ass and try to make the tackle. Jay's stout, stocky, strong, great golfer. I mean, not great, but very, like, scratch. And he's just very athletic. So he was the exception to this rule. But these guys back in the 60s, 50s especially, would play football until Pete Gogolak came along in 1964 and changed everything. He was at Cornell, and he just shattered all the college kicking records because he was a soccer player who learned to kick the football with his instep this way, with the instep instead of the toe. So it's this way. He turned his leg into a golf driver is what he did. This way as opposed to this way. And he was undrafted by the Buffalo Bills of the AFL, but right away he just revolutionized the game. He could kick it farther. He could get it up faster, kick it higher, farther, quicker. That's what happened. All those things together, it revolutionized. And all of a sudden, everybody's saying, I got to get me one of those. Well, unfortunately, those guys don't play football. They're coming over with soccer backgrounds. They're smaller, and what they do just makes them crazier, nuttier, more psycho. So all of a sudden, they're all soccer-style kickers, and here we went, and here we sit. It's exciting for all the wrong reasons. And now, I don't know if the balls are juiced or what. They're hotter. They allowed the kickers to doctor their kicking balls. And it's just shocking to me that we haven't had 70-yard field goals, but we will. We're heading there. And I think it's because the league thinks it's wildly exciting. And if they do go south, it's wildly exciting for the wrong reasons. It should be changed, but it won't be changed. And you know and I know it's coming. Just mark my words. I'll be tweeting about it. But just watch. We had a great wild card weekend decided by Brandon McManus. And by the way, this is one plot twist of this. Akib, my man on Arena Gridiron, did tell me that what you have to do with these kickers, you have to love them up. You have to make them feel part of the team. And maybe they did that with Brandon McManus. But Akib said he, as a leader of the team, went out of his way to be buddies with him, to make him feel like a real live Denver Bronco football player, and that paid off down the stretch run through the playoffs for their Super Bowl champ team, because he just felt like the team was more behind him, more with him, instead of an outcast. Can you imagine Tyler Loop on that flight going home to Baltimore after missing that kick in Pittsburgh, arch rival, lost the division? I can't imagine. But you know it's coming this weekend. We got all these great games. I can't wait for Josh Allen at Bills. I can't wait for Matthew Stafford at Caleb. What's left of the 49ers at Sam Darnold. The Texans defense against a very good New England defense. And did somebody kidnap C.J. Stroud last night? Will they release him in time for the game at New England? I love this stuff. I live for this stuff. But I know deep down that these games, these great games, will be decided by little non-football players who are complete psychos and cannot be trusted in big moments to swing their leg correctly. It's just like a golf swing, and we've seen it in golf with David Duval, Ian Baker Finch. They during their careers, apex of their careers, they won majors, then they lost their driver, just lost it completely. Tom Landry used to tell me that he coached kicking like it was golf because it's the same type of swing. And yet, as you know, if you play golf, as I do, unfortunately, the idea, it's all upside down. So if you're hooking the ball, you don't want to try to aim farther to the right because it's hooking. Because the farther you swing your leg out to the right, it's just going to increase this and it's going to hook even more, or vice versa. If you're slicing the ball, as Tyler Loop did to miss that kick at Pittsburgh, you can't try to pull it more to the left, because the more you pull it to the left, the more it's going to go that way. It's craziness, and it's hard to coach. And once the demons get a hold of your psyche, it's hard to uproot them. It's hard to exterminate the demons. Once they have you, you're pretty much done. You're going to have to start over with another team, and they bounce around, as you know, all over the place. This is what the greatest game has come to. It inevitably comes down to little non-football playing nut jobs. That's it. And it's because of these rules, these silly, gimmicky, ridiculous, beneath the dignity of the NFL rules. Which brings me to Cam Little, another with a thunderfoot. Kicked the record in the preseason. So there he was the other day. Last week he tweeted at me when I tweeted about how I just get sick to my stomach over having these little non-football players trot onto the turf and decide these games played by these mighty warriors. And when I tweeted, whose idea was this in the beginning, he tweeted at me, there's actually a reason for this, but you're not going to like it. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know Cam Little, but I do know this, Cam. I was rooting for Buffalo at Jacksonville this past Sunday. And I do know that at the end of the first half, you got a huge break because it sure looked to me like the clock had run out before you were able to get set and snap the ball and catch the Bills still running back offsides. And it allowed you, with what looked like no time on the clock, 1 second to try a very makeable field goal. Very makeable field goal. And I thought, oh, Cam Little, he'll make this. And he missed it because kickers miss. The bigger the stakes, the greater the pressure, the magnitude, just the aura of these games. The demons are just waiting. They're like sitting on your ears, waiting to just go right into your ears and into your psyche. And they got a hold of Cam Little's psyche, and he missed. And the Bills wound up winning by 3. Thank you, Cam Little. Case closed. Again, I'm not saying Cam Little lost the game. He just didn't help the Jaguars win the game. 3 easy points lost because of a kicker. It's always a kicker. It will come to fruition this weekend. Trust me. At least 2 of these games, maybe 3 out of the 4, will be decided by the kicker, by people who don't play football and can never play football, never tried to play football, and they are the little specialist, the not-so-special specialist who trots onto the field and wins or loses the game. At least back in the day, if Lou the Toe Groza missed the field goal, I could say, well, he did make the Pro Bowl as an offensive tackle. He did do that. If George Blanda missed the field goal or the extra point to lose the game for the Oakland Raiders, I could say, yeah, but he had a really great game at quarterback today because he was highly capable. He was a really good quarterback. Just imagine if we could at least get it to the place where every NFL team was required to have a kicker who played, if he participated in a game, 50% of the real snaps. He actually had to play safety or defensive line or offensive tackle, wide receiver. You would have to really hustle to find or hope that you could turn a great athlete, football player, into somebody who could kick. Maybe they couldn't do it soccer style. Maybe they'd have to do it old school, conventional, straight-on toe kicking. That would do my heart much more good than the insanity of place kicking in the greatest game in the world. Enjoy.